Hi everyone, in this video we're going to create an autocomplete search bar on React with RESTful APIs and with CSS and with awesome animated components. So this is what I'm going to be creating here, and this is a really awesome search bar all in React with style components, frame motion and everything, just to create this really elegant search bar. And the search bar here is going to be using like an outside RESTful API to search for series and TV shows like on the whole planet, and it just gives you the instant result and renders it in a really smooth way. So here's clearly see it's going to be animated. So if you click on it, you get this really awesome animation. You click outside, you close that, and you can clearly see like start typing. For example, you type something like you or something, you're going to get this instantly. And even it does have like a loading spinner and everything. You get like the rating, the name of the TV show, the actual thumbnail, and you can play around it however you want. So you got the source code down the description below without issues. So yeah, kind of looks good. If you got something not found, like a ridiculous movie name or series name, like no TV show is found, you can collapse that, you close it, and you can start from the beginning. And yeah, so I mean, if you need something like this, and if you want to have the expertise to build something like this from scratch using React, frame motion with cool animation, style components for CSS and JS, and either other third-party libraries like spinners and this kind of React icons to provide this awesome search and close icons. So yeah, hope you guys in the right place in here. And this should be like for beginners. So if you're an absolute beginner with React and just getting started and want to grasp and you want to take your skills to the next level to become a pro React with, you know, animating components and putting them in the right place just to be good at this. So you're in the right place. Hope this video is going to serve you well and you will learn a lot how to master React. So without further ado guys, let's go ahead and jump right into it. So let's go ahead and get started, and first things first in here, we need to install dependencies. But before that, if you have not set it up, if you haven't got actually a React project already set up for you, make sure to go ahead and create one. And here I'm using like Create React App to bootstrap this, as I always do in my other tutorials. So make sure to do that. If you don't know how, you can just pick up a terminal, Windows, Mac, or Linux. Mine in here is Linux. So you can just run npx create React App. And for this one, you can do like, for example, my app, and just click enter, and there you go. Boom. It's going to do the magic for you. It's going to set up all, and it's going to install all the dependencies for you, so the node modules and everything. So you can quickly get up and running with that. So right here, as clearly see here, we got a simple hello world running with React. So just like a simple hello world, and we're already using some style components in here. So this is going to be one of the dependencies that we're going to be using throughout this tutorial. So we're going to be using style components, which is a CSS in JS kind of library that allows us to create or put CSS inside of our JavaScript files and create components alongside that. And we're going to be using a couple of more dependencies and third-party components and other libraries that's going to help us to build this really awesome animated search bar with an API and everything. So to do that, first things first, we're going to be having frame motion. So if you're not familiar with frame motion, actually, it's just like a ready-made production library that allows you to do animation on the go with a declarative API, pretty much the same as React's API, which plays really well with React, and you can have all sort of components and you can animate it however you want. It also has like Spring animation mostly built onto this, as clearly so you can play around with it as you want. So you're going to be installing this as well. For the components, we're going to have in a couple of them. For example, this we're going to install React spinners to have ready-made spinners for us on the go, just import and get let go. We're also going to be having React icons in here, which is just a set of icons put together from font awesome icons, Ionic icons, typey icons, material design. They all exist in one single place, so we can just use it once and for all. And last but not least, we're going to be using React click outside hook handler, which just pretty much detects on the DOM if you clicked outside a specific container or not. It's going to be very helpful for us. And we got Axios in here just to do some HTTP kind of request on the go as well. So this should be pretty simple for you. I should, already be familiar with that. And for the last thing in here, it's more like an API we're going to be using. So I'm going to be building like a search application, or pretty much a search bar that searches for TV shows or TV series on this kind of huge database. It's called TV Maze. and we're going to be using their API to just look up. And they have a pretty simple API that allow us to search using the keyword, and this is exactly what we want. So we're going to be searching and displaying the list of TV shows that matches this particular criteria or the query you put on the search bar, and you can pretty much have it all on there with cool animation, with really nice state management, with HTTP and doing request and response and awaiting on that and managing the states on React. So if you're totally bigger into React, this video is kind of for you, just to grasp what is you can do with React and how to build like an application with an API and search and animation all in the next level. And you can be actually a pro developer just by watching this video. It's going to have a lot of stuff to grasp on to learn more about how to use React in the advanced level and the pro level. So yeah, this is basically what we're going to be jumping on, and this is what we're going to be using throughout the whole video. So first things first, as I said before, I'm going to be installing those needed dependencies. So I already did install those exclusively on my package.json, but for you, you should go ahead and just like run yarn add. For example, you're going to be adding Axios first, style components, framer motion for the motion animation library. We're going to be also needing React click outside hook. For installing that hook, we're also going to be needing React icons for the set of icons, and we're gonna, last but not least, we're going to be needing React spinners. So just add those, all of them using yarn, and you are pretty much good to go. So this is basically what we need to do in that particular case. Just add those and you are actually good to go. Then you can go ahead and run the server. Now we are currently running here, and yeah, pretty much this is all you need. Just open up a web page, which is right now we got the hello world, and the hello word is pretty simple. We just got a container, we got some margin from top, and that should mimic that and how it looks like. So yeah, pretty good. We can have some even more margin here, but yeah, nevertheless, that should make it look pretty good in our case. So to start off with the components, here's in here, I've already created some like components folder that's going to do the job for us. So this is where we're going to hold our components, and the most basic components we're going to be having, the main one we're going to be working on this video tutorial is actually the search bar component. So I want to just go and put another folder. I'm going to name this search bar, and inside of this I'm going to use index.gsx. And the reason I'm using GSX in here because this is going to be JavaScript file plus XML or GSX, what it's called, what you use it pretty much for rendering React components. So this is the name because this is the React component. Okay, let's go ahead and import React as we always do in the beginning. So importing React on top there. I'm going to export the functional components on top there as well. So I'm going to name this search bar the same as the file name. Maybe needed perhaps, but I don't think so. And of course, right now we should be using style components to get started and grasping of exactly what we need to do, and put the container together and have CSS inside of JS to create our components. So the first basic components we want is actually the container that's going to contain our whole search bar with icons, with the container itself, with the wrapper and everything around that corner. So what we want is the search bar container, and I'm going to be using styled in here, and I'm going to use the power of VS Code to auto import for me. And I see a lot of people asking me in the comments how I do that. VS Code has a feature like this on the latest versions of VS Code. So all you need to do is just type in the module name in here. For example, style component, which is called styled. You click enter, and that's it. Pretty much that's it. And it's going to auto import it for you on the top screen you see there. Okay, pretty cool. Now for the search bar here, what we want, it depends on your criteria and your website and the layout and everything. But for me, for my search bar here, it's going to be quite, biggy kind of search bar. And in most cases, what you want to do with search bar is you actually, when you click on a button, you expand the search bar or something. This is much better for user experience and for the UI regarding the search bar itself. So in our case in here, we're going to be having it laying down already. So I'm going to use display flex. I'm going to use flex direction to be column as well. So I'm using auto filling from here. For the width, I'm going to, as I said before, it's quite big. So I'm going to use like 35 or 34 AM. For the height, I'm trying to make it like an initial height because later on I'm going to be animating the height up and down. So here I'm going to just like use 3.8 AM, just an initial height I'm going to be hiding or having at first. For the background color, it's going to be completely white, so 3Fs should do the job for us. I'm also going to be needing some border radius. So the border radius here might be like 6 pixels should do the job for us. And we're going to be needing also some box shadow just to take it off the ground and make it like, you know, pop up on the front of the user. So box shadow is really important property if you want to do something like this. So I'm going to just have it a little bit to the Y. I'm going to just do blur effects and a little bit of spreading. And regarding RGBA, I'm going to have pitch black, and I'm going to do like 0.14 or 13 or something. Whatever it makes sense more for you. And last but not least, I need to make sure that I hide the overflow. So anything goes outside of this container's boundaries, which is this pretty much, width and height, it pretty much going to be hidden. And this is the point what we want to do. Okay, so this is basically the container we're going to be needing first to get started. Now, the next one, we're going to be needing to actually put some search input container that is going to contain the search input itself, like the CSS or the HTML input itself. Plus, we're going to be having like another like simple search icon beside it. So it's going to be the container for it. Maybe later we're going to have some cross or close icon. That's where it will be living inside of that container. So I'm going to name this search input container. So it's going to be styled again and everything. Now for the width, I will make sure that this takes full width. For the height, I don't want to take it to full height. So I want to have like minimum height to this, like 4 em or something, just a little bit bigger than this, because we will see why, because this effect later on, once we collapse and expand, this should like cover up everything as we need, and we don't want to show the rest of the stuff, alright? So this is the point where I want to do it right this way. Now I want to flex, this should be flex row, and I want to align items to the center, so it should be vertically aligned properly. Then I want to have some like relative position in here, because later on we could have icons to have some absolute positioning and stuff like that. So we need to work on that. And last but not least, some padding. So left and right padding here is kind of pretty simple. It should make it look good. Okay. So yeah, all right. We make those look good already, and this is kind of like looking good. Now we're gonna be needing a couple of more stuff to worry about. Is actually the search input itself. So the search input in here, I will try to make the search input as minimal as possible. And if you see me here going through the tutorial and the CSS parts, like very quickly, because it's really not about having the CSS. I want to just get into the grasp of having how to manage the React state and doing this HTTP request and all that sort of stuff. So I'm trying to go a little bit quicker than that, because I know a lot of people know the CSS and can copy and understand CSS pretty easily without any issues. So for the input itself, I'm going to make sure that it takes full width and full height. For the actual width, I'm going to hide the outline, so make sure to put it as none, and I'm also going to hide any border that comes along that as none as well. For font size, I'll try to increase the font size a little bit, because this is going to be kind of like a modern input, where you see a lot of modern inputs have kind of a bigger font size, if to be honest. For the color, I'm going to try to have pitch black, but I want to just offset this to let me use my RGB picker here on VS Code. I'm gonna go a little bit to the bluish kind of color, if that makes sense. That should be looking good. I'm gonna include some border radius just to match the actual container, or the parent container, if that makes sense. Font weight 500, and yeah. So I also like want to put some background dash color this to be transparent. So I don't want to have any kind of background in this, just the input functionality itself, and everything else is going to be completely hidden for us. Now for focus, I want to also hide the outline, so I don't want to have any kind of outlines coming through. For placeholder, so likely for us, we can style our placeholders. So for the placeholder, I want to style it a little bit. I want to change the actual color of this. So I'm going to do color, and I'll try to make the color as gray as possible. So I'll try to put gray and try to go ahead and put something like just something really small. So for example, like BE or something. I don't know. Okay, maybe let's try BE here. Alright, so color here and there, and I also want to include some transition to the placeholder itself. So I include 250 millisecond transition for all properties, and an is in and out timing function. Okay, now inside of the focus in here, so if we focus on the actual search bar, what I want to do a really cool effect, which is like once the cursor is focused or the mouse is clicked on that particular input, I want to just like smoothly hide out and take off the opacity of the actual placeholder tags. So what I want to do is whenever you hover over this, I want to go ahead and do at, then access the actual placeholder style. Then I can do for opacity, I can just completely take the opacity and make it look 0. Okay, and yeah, that should be pretty minimal kind of input at first. So try to go ahead and render up stuff right here, going back and forth. So I'm gonna try to render the search bar container, then inside of it the search input container itself. Then I'm gonna have the search input. Okay, and now here I want to include some placeholder. For example, I can do search for series shows. Okay, yeah, so let's go ahead and have these components rendered inside of our application. So I can I'm gonna have search bar. Then of course this component it can be included anywhere throughout your application and you can manage it. Even though you can just go and like down in the description, you can grab the repository code, then you can copy this component wherever you want in your project or something, and you can have it working just like that. Make sure just install the dependencies correctly, otherwise it won't work with you properly. Okay, so this is what we got at first glance. So this is kind of like the container we want to have beside the search input and everything. And I don't know why I put inside of the search input a div. It should have been an input, and there you go, now it works. So as clear to see, whenever I click on this, it just hides out really smoothly, and the click outside, like it's not on focus anymore. It just comes through really smoothly. And yeah, I kind of like that and how it looks like this. So the container is looking good, everything, and here you can type in whatever. So we got this minimal search input looking absolutely mental. I do love that indeed. So yeah, this kind of looking really, really good. Now for the search input, as I said before, I want to have beside that like a couple of icons. So for example, from this left side, I want to have like some search icon, and from the right side, I want to have like a close icon. So whenever we have some text, we click on it, it clears automatically for us. So we can do that real quickly here, using through this. So we can go and create 2 components. So I'm going to first do like the search icon itself. Try to use a span instead of a div, because a span is more like a smaller area. And I want to put a color for this, which is going to be super gray. So I'm going to use the same BBBE, which is kind of a grayish kind of look. And the font size, I'm trying to make it quite big, so 28 or 7. I'm guessing this should be quite big enough. For the margin right, I'm gonna have some margin right just to have it between the actual inputs. So 10 pixels, and the margin kind of top, because the icon is kind of like, I believe it's a bit offsetted, and so I'm trying to make it a little bit more centered. And yeah, so I'll also try to do vertical align here just to be on pretty much middle. Okay, it's more like a center, and that should work for us perfectly. This is a search icon. Now I want the close icon, so I'm going to use a span. Pretty much the same thing in here that I want to do. So let's go and use the same thing. And basically here for the search or the close icon itself, I'm going to take this a little bit down, because this should be a little bit more smaller. I'm going to have some transitions, so I want to have some effects. So whenever I hover over this kind of like close icon, I'm going to have this effects of, you know, this is a clickable thing, not as the other search icon. This is just not a clickable thing anyway, because our input doesn't have a button, doesn't have a submit button, or our search bar doesn't have a submit button. Indeed, you just like click, or pretty much whatever your keyword types, you type it there and it just do an autocomplete for you or auto search on the API for you. So yeah, that should be pretty simple stuff going on. So I want to do all here. I want to use 2 milliseconds and ease in and out as always, and I'll make sure that the cursor is pointer. Now, whenever we hover over this, I want to change the color, okay? So I want to go ahead and make the color a little bit kind of lighter, to be honest. So, okay, I guess that should do the job perfectly for us. I should make it look good. Yeah. So we need the margin top there, I believe, and there you go. So this is the search input. Now I want to have these two icons. First, the search icon. So this one I'm going to be using the IO, which is from Ionic, and it's called search. So I don't think this is auto importable. So I can go ahead and do that. So IO search. I'm going to import this from React icons, and you can do / and you can select the kind of library you want to import from. For me, I'm going to use the IO, so IO5, and that should have the search. So we need just to do a name import exclusive. That does exist indeed. And here you can render it as a React components, because here for Create React App and everything, it supports the conversion from SVGs and render them directly as React components. So this should be making it look good. And also this is going to take the kind of color we put on the parents. Indeed, we're going to be we already have a color here. So this is going to be affected, or this is going to be set to this IO search icon by default. Okay, so I'm going to copy this one. I'm going to go after, and I'm going to have the close icon now. So close icon, and I want to do, I don't know, cross or close. I don't know what's called. Yeah, it should be close, I believe, if that makes sense. And hallelujah, look, it already appeared for us, and it looks absolutely amazing. Look, if you try something like hello world or something, I mean, yeah, it does look really good and kind of minimal and futuristic and everything. And I kind of love that, to be honest. It really looks really good and everything. And you should have, like, whenever you click that, this clears away and everything. So that should make it look pretty smooth as far as I can tell right here. So now what we want is actually whenever we focus on this, like we click on that or just the focus happens, we want to expand this search bar, which means we want to just like add some like container that goes really down a little bit here. Then whenever the user starts typing something, it's going to do autocomplete or auto search for him. Then the result is going to come up on the bottom, on the side of that bottom container down there. So, I mean, this should be pretty self-explanatory in how stuff should be going on behind the scenes, but this is how we want to do it. And I want to also animate this all going on. So whenever we click in this one is kind of like expands and container just comes through in a really smooth animation. And this is where frame of motion comes into the role, okay? So this is where we're going to be using frame of motion in that particular sense. So first things first, I'm going to be using some React states in here. So I'm going to have like is expanded and sets expanded. And this is just simply to track if it is currently expanded or not, which means just to track if the focus is in or not, okay? Pretty simple. So this is what is expanded is going to be having. Now we're going to have two controllable functions. One is going to like expand container, which all it takes care of just toggling this set expanded, okay? So all it's going to do is going to do like set expanded. The reason I'm having this right here because, you know, just a function, it takes no arguments or whatever, so you can, you know, directly pass it through into the callback of any kind of like event handler on the components or on the elements in themselves, and it should take care of it. So that should make it look good here. And the rest in here, we're gonna also have like collapse container. Now for the collapse container, what's gonna happen? Okay, sorry, I can't type. Alright, so for the collapse container here, we're gonna also just collapse it, which means set expanded is gonna go false, and that's it. That's basically what we want. So now on the search input, I wanna have on focus. So let me just put that after this. So on focus, and on focus in here, what I wanna do is expand the container. Okay, that should make it pretty self-explanatory, I bet. So is expanded is going to be set to true in here. Now, how can we apply the animation? How can we take this, which means if set expanded is set to true, so if this state is triggered and is expanded is set to true, how we want to show this? This is all controlled throughout the search bar container. Remember, the search bar container is actually the one that is setting the height and everything. So this is the component, or this is the element that we want to control the CSS of. And indeed, or more specifically, to be more specific, what we want to control is actually the height property. So we want to animate the height property. So if it is focused and we want to expand it, we want to just like take this height property to like 30 EM or something. That should be really big. And if we want to collapse this or close it, we're just going to take it back to the default one, which is 3.8 or something. Now to do that, we can use frame of motion. For frame of motion, we have to change these elements into the frame of motion elements that is provided. It pretty much has the same kind of API style component does, so you can use that. So all we have to do is go ahead and import motion, which is going to be imported from frame of motion, like the library itself. Now inside of motion, there's a set of HTML elements in here. And what we want to have is the div. And that's it. And here we are passing it to style components just to be able to style that particular div. Pretty simple, right? Cool. I'll just go ahead and have that actually working. Now, for the actual container, what we want, there's a set of attributes or props we want to provide to make sure that we animate it properly whenever the set or is expanded is set to true. So we're going to have like something called animate, and this one is going to decide like how to animate it. We also got another prop called variance. Now this variance prop is going to also decide like what are the types of variants, and depending on this variance, just like an object, you say I want variant number 1, and variant number 1 is going to be another object that's going to apply some CSS. That's it. So let's go ahead and define our variants on top here just to make sure we know what we're doing. So I'm going to name this container variance, and it's going to be an object. So if it's expanded, so we're going to apply this custom style, or if it's collapsed, I want to apply a different style. Now if it's expanded, I want to take the height to the topest level. So for example, let's say I want to apply 20 EM height to the CSS. Otherwise, collapse is going to be applying the default one. So by default, we got 3.8 EM sets over there. Okay, pretty sweet. Now we can go ahead back here and pass this container variance to the variants themselves. Now here for the animates, we have to provide a property, either expanded or collapsed, so the CSS could be applied throughout to this search bar container throughout this variance we provided. So we do like is expanded. If it is expanded, what we want to do, we want to provide it expanded, which is the same property name here, and in this case it's going to apply this particular object CSS to the current elements right here, to the current components. Otherwise, if it's not, all we have just to do is collapsed. Okay, pretty sweet. Now we got is expanded here, we got the variance and everything, and hallelujah, we got already that expanded. So if I try to refresh, the first state or default, it's not going to be expanded, of course. Now if I click on this, boom, it expands really quickly, and I see that the animation is quite ridiculously smooth and everything goes on. So yeah, I kind of like this animation a lot on how it looks like. Now pretty sweet. We got that's actually the first part of this working fine. Now what I want also is actually whenever this is expanded, we can type in and we can click whatever. But what I want more specifically is whenever we click outside of this container, like the whole container, like click outside here or there, like the body or something, I want to collapse this. And this is the natural thing that should happen to any component. Or this should happen as well if we click on this cross, which means just close and clear out this particular one. So let's go ahead and have this, and we're going to be using the help of our third-party components that is going to take care of click outside handler. So I'm going to import so is outside click, I believe, from React's click outside. If not mistaken about that, that should or pretty much this should be a use click outside. It's a vice versa thing. Okay, all right, pretty sweet. Now here for this one, what we have to do is actually just call it. First one is going to provide us with a ref, just an elements ref, just to pass in to the actual components, like the parent components we want to control this behavior on. And the other one is like is clicked outside. Okay, I'm gonna just like use click outside, and no need to pass in anything anyway. So that should make it pretty self-explanatory right there. That should make it look good. We also need to have a reference. This reference here, I have to pass this first to the elements we want to control, which means ref equals ref. So that should be good. Now, whenever we click outside, this boolean is going to become true. By default, it's going to be false because we haven't clicked outside. But if we click outside of this particular component, this one right here, if we click outside here or here, this one is going to become true. And we have to we have to watch for this value changes using the useEffect hook. And if this one changes to true, all we have to do is just collapse this one. Pretty easy, right? Cool. Now let's go ahead and do this. I'm gonna have here useEffect. So I'm gonna do useEffects, and useEffects is gonna only care about is clicked outside, okay? Now want to make sure also is clicked outside is indeed true. So if it's true, all we have to call is actually collapse container. That's it. That's basically all we need to do to make sure that we work. So if we click on that, that is expanded. We click outside, there you go, with a smooth animation. I mean, the animation is not really that smooth because it uses some kind of weird spring animation, but that is looking so far so good for now on how it looks like. So let me try to tweak this animation a little bit to make it look a little bit better. So I'm gonna create const container transition. Okay, so here I'm gonna have a type is gonna be a string by default. I'm gonna also change a couple of stuff like the dampen value, which is just like the opposite force applied to this. So you can imagine this as a spring, and this is like the vice versa force, if that makes sense, according to Newton's, I think, first or third law. I'm not a big physics fan actually, but you know, I got some kind of knowledge of how this kind of stuff works. And for stiffness in here, by default, it's 100. And stiffness is actually how smooth the animation, or pretty much how smooth the actual spring is. So I'll try to make this as smooth because we got some higher value of damping there. Okay, so let's go and provide this. I'm going to have transition, and this one is going to be container transition. All right. Hope that make it look good, and there you go. Yeah, it does look good. Now it looks more natural indeed, and it looks way much better than it was before. All right, pretty sweet. Now we got this ref, we got the transition, the variants, and everything. Now let's say if I'm typing something in here and I click outside, that word there still lives there. What we want is actually whenever we click outside, we collapse and we clear everything in here. And that should happen as well if we click on that cross button. So let me just set up the cross button first, because it's quite simple. So the cross button, all it does is collapse container. All right, that's all it does. Now, instead of a collapse container, we need to make sure we clear this input. And for clearing the input, if you're familiar with React input and refs and all that, you have to hold the ref attribute or the reference to that particular input right here. Then whenever anything happens, you can clear out the value as you're dealing with a normal, regular, vanilla JavaScript HTML element. Okay, so we can have that. I'm gonna use use ref, and I'm gonna do input ref, and I'm gonna use ref real quickly there, and that's it. So now for the input ref, what I want to do is actually just pass it to throughout this. I'm gonna name this input ref. Maybe you want to change this to click handler or parent ref. That should be pretty self-explanatory actually. All right, so for the collapse in here, I want to also check if, because sometimes it is actually null, so you don't want to just manipulate null values. All right, so I have to do a check-in first, and I do import ref current value equals 0, and that should clear the input for us pretty easily. Okay, so if we click on that, we type hello, and we click outside, that's going to be automatically done for us. And if you click on that cross, that's going to do the same thing for us, which looking amazing for me. So you type in something and this is expanded, and this should have a spinner or something we're going to do right now. And you click that, boom, it's cleared out, and everything is kind of looking as we want it to be. Now, you see this kind of like cross thing? I don't want it to be here because there's nothing. I want it only when we like have, like this is expanded, okay? So if it's expanded, you're gonna have something in here, otherwise just ditch it and don't show it. So you can just go and have the close icon in here, but as well what I want to do, we can just go and have some animation into this going on. So whenever this is being hidden out or just like, you know, being showed up, I want this animated, not just like completely removed from the DOM. So we can use something called animate presence, and this is from frame motion as well. So what does this do is pretty much whatever you like, if you have a component as a child of this that is being removed from the DOM, that's gonna, if it is being removed from DOM, if you provide like an exit property or something, the animation is gonna be like applied first, then it will be deferred, then like removed from the DOM, if that makes sense. So this is what I'm gonna be doing right here, and it should make it look quite better. So here you should provide a key, just a unique key to this. So for example, close icon. For pretty much, I believe this should be provided on top in here because this is the part where we have everything. Now, I want to provide a couple of stuff, like we need to make sure this one is, where is that? So this is a close icon, this is a search icon. Yeah, I need to make sure that this one uses the frame of motion API, so motion.span, okay? And if you go back right here, we got the key and everything. So I want to have like an initial kind of animation goes on. So this is the first initial animation that appears with. So the first animation is, of course, opacity 0. We don't want any opacity going on there. And so if you go next, let me just say that just to have everything pretty fine for us. Now, next here for the animates, I want it to like, once it is being animated, it's actually in, I want to show it, okay? I want the opacity to be 1. And last below is we want to have the exit animation, so if it's being removed from the DOM, what we want to apply is opacity 0, and just like smoothly hide this out, okay? And last below is we need to provide some transition with this, which we want to have like a duration. I want to take the duration a little bit to 0.2. So that should look a little bit faster plus a bit more smoother. So go ahead and have this here, and yeah, I want to just hide this one if, or show this one only if it is expanded, if that makes sense. Okay, so first thing here is being hidden right now. If you click on it, it shows up really smoothly with this awesome opacity kind of, you know, showing in, just really slowly showing in. And if you collapse this, it goes off and being removed from the DOM really smoothly as well. So this is kind of like every small detail is being controlled, and this is how you know that you have a really good component or a really good product, and you do it right on the UI. So you have to control, and you have to be able to actually have just like a little tiny sweet finger on any kind of components you see on here on the screen, and everything behaves as smooth as possible in the best way possible. So this is what's going on right now for here. So hello world, cool, something, I don't know, something dumb. You close that, and there you go. You got that actually working as we want it to be. Now, pretty cool. Now let's go ahead to control this particular area and try to like search something on our API, on the database, of course, and have some loading going on first and all that sort of stuff. So for the animate presence in here, I want to go ahead and have a completely different components that is going to be like controlling this area in here, and I want it to take the full width and the full height and everything. So I'm going to go a little bit beneath here. I'm going to create search const, search, maybe search result, or I'm going to do search content, style div, and this one basically takes full width, full height, and I'm going to use a display flex and flex direction of column basically, because this is what I want to do is, and I'm also going to provide some padding, just like 1em padding. Plus, what we want to also do is actually some separator. So I want to have like some smooth line separator going just beneath the search bar here, just to separate the search bar from the content that's going to appear bottom there. So I want this awesome line separator, so I'm going to name it line separator, style.span. And for this one, I'm going to have display flags, as always, otherwise it won't work properly with you. I'm going to have a minimum width of 100%. I want it to take the full width. And the height, I just want 2 pixels, right? Just 2 simple small pixels. For the background color, I'm going to have like this grayish kind of color, but I think I already got some color over here, which should be kind of grayish and kind of awesome looking, a little bit to the white, with some opacity. And yeah, this kind of does the job perfectly. Okay, now this is the search input container. Now outside of this, I want to have so the search contents here, making the hello, and just before this I want to separate everything, so I want to have the line separator. Pretty cool. And look at this, it looks amazing. This separator is actually separating it really well, and we got the text here, hello. Collapse this, the separators won't appear anymore, it's just like completely hidden down there, and you click it, you're gonna show this all awesome kind of stuff. Maybe you can have something here in the middle, like start typing to automatically search or something like that. So you can have really cool stuff going on with this awesome search input and everything. Okay, pretty cool. Now we got the search content, we got the hello world and everything there. Let's go ahead and try to trigger up the API. And also I want to work with some like loading bars and everything. So I want to first have kind of like a wrapper for our loading spinner. So I'm going to use a style div, and I'll try to take 100% here, 100% there, display flags. And I want to align it both vertically and horizontally on the center. So I'm going to use center, center here, center there. Okay, so this is for the loading, and I want to show up some loading. Of course, I want to go ahead and do like search contents, and inside of this, loading wrapper, and I will use something from our spinner. So if we take a look on that spinners, where is that? React spinners. On the demo page, there are tons of spinners actually going on. So what I like the most and what I use the most is where is that? Is this one. It looks pretty minimal and it matches our design. So this is called Moon Loader, if I'm not mistaken. So you can go ahead and grab this Moon Loader. So I'm gonna just do import Moon Loader, and of course you can like have this from React spinners. Then you do a /, then you can do Moon Loader. And the reason we do this, or the reason that most of the libraries actually intend to do this, is actually to support some of the critical and awesome ES6 features, which is like named import and named exports. So right now, throughout this package, like the whole React spinners, we're only going to import Moon Loader, which means this Moon Loader is the only thing that is going to be bundled into our like final bundle. All the other spinners from this package are not going to be bundled. Actually, it's going to be completely ignored and thrown out to the bin. So they're not going to be existing in our bundle, which means we're going to make our bundle way much smaller and better. And there's going to increase user experience. It's going to increase revenues if you have this in a multi-billion kind of companies or something. Looks smooth, right? Sweet. Okay, so we can have Moon Loader going on down here for that, and you can provide a sort of stuff for the Moon Loader, like color and stuff like that, and you can even style it as your own. So I'm going to provide loading to true, just always to be loading. For color, I want this to be complete black, so I don't care about that much. And the size, we can say that should be a 20 or something. And if you try to take a look on this, look at that. The loader is actually working because we've got that always there, but look at this. It matches the style and everything, and it's on the center, and it looks absolutely amazing. I'm in love with that already. So yeah, pretty sweet. Now that's actually the right, or pretty much the most important part of the video, is actually doing the search and rendering stuff out there on pretty much grabbing it from this TV API. Let me put it right here. And this is the documentation. So you search, you can do a show single search or show search, which searches pretty much for multiple serves. So for example, this one searches for, I believe, girls show, and anything matches that kind of criteria, anything that matches that keyword is going to be prompted in here. And this is kind of like what we want to do. Okay. So let's go ahead and have that working for us right here. So I'm gonna have kind of a function that's gonna do this job for us. I'm gonna have search TV show, and here we want to start the search. Now, first things first, I want to grab the value from this input. So I want to have a state. I'm going to do const or search query and set search query. And I'm going to use state and make sure that is going to be null at first whenever we start with that. Okay, so I want to provide this and make this controlled. So for a controlled one, this shouldn't be null because it can't be null. It has to be like an empty string or something. All right, so this is a value is going to be search query, and on change, I want to change that. So I want to have like an on change handler that takes care of changing this. So change handler is going to take an event as always. Now for the event in here, I want to do event.prevent defaults, which prevents any kind of default behavior the browser is going to run into. And after that, I'm going to do like set search query. I'm going to access events, the current target, which is the actual import element. Then inside of that, I'm going to grab the value outside of this import element, and that should be just putting it inside of this state. Okay, sweet. Okay, let's go ahead and have this change handler. You can pass in it there, and that should work already. If you just type in something, console log it, that should actually work. Okay, pretty cool. Now this is the TV show, but the problem that you see, like I'm pretty sure a lot of websites, like any website pretty much, if it has autocomplete or auto search for you, it's gonna have this like debouncing kind of little trick going on behind the scenes. So let's say, for example, if you type a character in here, so for every single character, if I put in the inspect in here, if we try to do a console log of the value, and we can do search query and go to the console real quick. Now for the console, let me just put that on the bottom there. So for the console in here, if you type in, okay, let me just, I don't know, this is not being cleared out and I should have cleared that. So search query to empty. This is a good bug to notice. But what I mean in here is actually whenever I click on toggle on this, I click, for example, a single character, and clearly that single character is being changed in the state. So every single character is going to change up and trigger up a state change, which means we don't want to hit the API for every single character, but what we want is actually to wait a little bit of like small milliseconds whenever the user is actually typing. For example, if he types hello word, we're not going to trigger the API on every single character. We want to just like wait after the user to finishes his words, then I'm going to wait like 500 milliseconds. And if the user doesn't type anything after that 500 millisecond, we're going to fire up a search. And this is going to just take, if you got, for example, here 10 searches, each search per kind of character, using this kind of like algorithm, this trick, like the debouncing trick, is going to save us probably 9 or 8 kind of requests to the API, which makes it way much better. It's going to increase performance, going to increase better user experience, better UI, and plus it's not going to hit our server indefinitely forever. And this is a good practice. So this is called, or this practice, or this design pattern called debouncing, where you just like differ kind of like the state change for every single keystroke. So whenever the user is actually typing, for example, if type G in here, I'm going to check if the user doesn't type something after another 500 millisecond, I'm going to trigger up the API search. But if the user types something before the end of the next 500 millisecond, in this particular niche, in this particular criteria, what I'm going to be doing is actually just clear the previous timer and start a new timer for another 500 millisecond. And it goes on and on and on till the user stops, of course, eventually it's going to stop putting the words or putting the characters inside of that. And after like 500 millisecond, I'm going to fire up the API search, and literally everyone is going to be happy about the result of this. Sweet. So let's go ahead and have this debounce. And for the debounce, what I like the most is actually to create like a hook specifically made for this, and you can use it throughout the application. So let's go ahead and create a hook for that. Let's go ahead and make this one way much better. So I'm going to have a hooks folder, and inside of the hooks folder, it's going to call this like debounce hook.gsx. And this hook is pretty much the same as a normal React component. So I'm going to have export function, and I'm going to import React on top there. Okay, so I'm going to export, I'm going to use debounce, and this one is going to take a couple of like arguments. They're not props, they are arguments because this is a normal function. Plus, it's kind of like a smaller abstract hook. We can just put it inside. So we need the value that we want to debounce, which in our case is going to be the input value. The next one is going to be the timeout, like what is the exact timeout we want to wait before firing up an API call, or before like waiting for the next keystroke or another character to come through. And I could say this should be like a 500 millisecond, maximum should be a second. You don't want to put more because the user is going to be unsatisfied about that. I'm going to have eventually a callback that's going to be called after the timeout is ended, and you can have it. So let's go and have that. I'm going to first have a timer. I'm going to set timer, and this one I'm going to store inside of this state is actually the set timeout timer that we registered before. So we will see that in a second. First it's going to be null. Next, what we want is actually a function to clear the timer. So we can have clear timer. And this one, all it just does call clear timeout and passing in the timer. And that only going to happen if the timer is valid. I don't want to clear a null timer. It should be a pretty bad practice. Okay, sweet. Now we can have use effect now. So use effects, and it's not going to be like a regular use effects, but this use effect should render every single time, or should be triggered every single time the value change, which means whenever you put something new in here, this function is going to be triggered. So what I want to do is actually clear the timer, and this only is going to be cleared if the timer is valid, otherwise just completely ignore that. And also I want to check if the value and the callback. So the callback is actually valid. It's not something rather than a function. I'm going to have in here new timer. Then I'm going to use set timeout. So for the set timeout, I'm going to pass in the callback I'm going to have, and I'm going to pass in the timeout. And the timeout in here should be in millisecond indeed. You should be familiar with that API. Now what I'm going to be checking is actually just simply set the timer to the new timer. Now every single time the API in here is actually, whenever the value here is going to be changing, and the set timeout still goes on, right? Now we check, if we got a timer that is already running, I want to clear this timeout, which means this callback function is completely going to be disposed before the timeout runs. Then what happens, actually we check the value, we do register a new timeout, then we set that new timer, then we go on. If another character comes through, the same operation goes on and on and on till the user stops typing. I hope you got the point of how debouncing actually work. I tried to explain it as best that I could. Okay, so that's going pretty good. Let's go and use this inside of our code. So what I want to do, I want to do use debounce. So debounce here takes a value, so it's going to be the search query. The timeout I'm going to say 500 millisecond, and the callback is going to be search for TV show. All right, so I'm going to search TV show. I'm just passing the reference there. Okay, pretty sweet. Now let's go ahead and have the search TV show. Now this all is going to be running after the end of 500 millisecond, and the user is going to stop typing. So we're not going to be running this endlessly many times. Now here we're going to check if not search query or search query dot trim equals empty string. So in this case, I'm just going to completely return. I'm not going to continue with the execution of that work or something. I'm just completely going to return on that. Now let's go ahead and have another state in here. It's going to hold if we are loading or not. So I'm just going to check if it is loading and set loading. So use state. First it's going to be false, of course. No loading is going to happen first. Now I want to trigger set loading to be true. if that goes on, of course. And I want to have another function in here. All it does is going to prepare the URL with the right query for us, and it encodes it for stuff like XSS vulnerabilities or something. So you don't want it to include whatever the user types in here without double checking first and without encoding that particular text into a URL that send it to your server. This is a pretty bad practice, and you have to encode it first. So this is exactly what I want to do. I want to have like prepare search query. And this one is just basically like whatever you get with it, like whatever you give it in here, it just like returns to you a better kind of approach. So here's actually the API I'm going to be using. Let me grab the API from right here. So that should make sense in here. So the API, I'm going to have like something called URL. I'm going to open up Backtricks. Now this is the API that I want to use, the TV Maze database API. There's actually a single search here, but we also can use something like what is called here. It's actually just regular search. So we can ignore single search. And for the query parameter, you can have your query, your string query, then you can pass it through. Now the string query in here, I'm gonna just like have my query, and this is still bad, right? You don't want to just do it every way. Now to encode it, make sure you're doing it the right way. You have to call the encode URI function, which is gonna replace any kind of bad query, bad like characters that is inside of this URL with good ones that is gonna return it as well. So you have to pass in the actual URL, then return this, then we can use it here. Okay, so I'm gonna have URL, and I'm gonna prepare search query URL. Search query. That should give us a brand new search query URL as well. So we're good to go. Now next, what I want to make sure that I mark this as asynchronous function. I'm gonna have a response. I'm gonna await. So I'm gonna use Axios to use a GET request to request the URL and catch if any problem goes through. Okay, if any error comes through that, I want to catch this one. So I'm gonna do a console log of error, and also I want to just go and check if response is valid. I can just do it in console log response, then I can say response.data. Alright, pretty sweet. Now this is how we search with TV shows. Now finger crossed that should work in the first time. So let's try to put something in here like Peaky Blinders or something. I don't know. And that is being returning an empty. Oh, it's Peaky. Okay. Yeah, we got a particular array of TV shows with different scores on the show data itself, if it's ended or not, rating. It's called, I think the name is Mercy Peaky. I don't know. The genres are drama, and you have the IMDb ID and everything. So it kind of looks pretty sweet for me here in this particular niche. I want to control this loading bar, or loading spinner, by the way. So all I have to do is loading, and yeah, put it inside of the loading wrapper. So if I close, the loading still goes on because we're not clearing that. So this is a pretty bad practice. Set loading to false. So when I click on that, there's still nothing because we haven't typed anything. But let's say we type something in here like you or something to this TV series, and you go inside of that, and it's clear to the matching here, like from 15 score going all the way down. And this is actually, there is a series called you with, you got the image, you got everything, and this is what we want to render out down here once the request is done and done. And here I'm totally forgetting about clearing out the loading, so I make sure to do that right there, otherwise it sticks around forever. You don't want to do this. And yeah, so the response is invalid, but we still we should have got an error in here if you guys from the URL and everything. Slug response. Let me try to do that and see what the response actually has. If we got something that doesn't exist. So for the response, status 200, the data is empty. Okay, so this is not triggering any kind of yeah, so we can have it our way. So if we got like an empty array, what we want to display something like, oh, no TV shows found with this name, please choose a better one or something. You know, you got the point of what we can do with that. But the first thing I want to do right here is actually to show the TV shows, the actual TV shows. There's a couple of them. I don't want to show all of them. Just a list in here, like an image, then the text just right, you know, next to it. That should make it look pretty good. So let's go ahead and create these small components that's going to do the job for us perfectly here. So I'm going to go inside of components as well. I'm going to create a new one. So I'm going to do like TV show components. So I'm pretty sure, should I call this, okay, lowercase. So index GSX, and it's going to be a normal component. All it does, just a dummy component. All it does is pretty much just control whatever you pass it through. So for example, we pass in an image and a text, it renders it out instantly. So I'm going to export const, or just a function, TV show and props. Then here we're going to have like everything what we need. So TV show container, so we style div, then I'm going to have like some width into it. So I want to make sure it takes the full width. For the height, I will say 2 EM. I don't know. That should make it look good. Flex direction in here. It should flex row. That should make it look good as well. And I want to have some border into this. So border bottom like 1 pixel solid. And the color, we can use the same color we used for the separator here and there. So let me see, the separator looks kind of decent, but I want to have a smaller one. So I want to take this color even less. So I want to take the opacity down a bit, and this should be 1. Okay, so that's it's kind of looking good as far as I can tell. Okay, let me try, let's say we want to have some padding as well. So top, I'm going to say 6 pixels. Left to right, 8 pixels maybe. Now we can have the image. So I can call this thumbnail. It's going to be style div again. And the inside image element is going to take width to be auto, just to preserve the aspect ratio. So every single time I say that on my videos. And the other one is going to be width auto as well, just preserving the aspect ratio. And the height can be controlled in here. So for example, you can say whatever height is possible, we can just take it as well, 100%. We will see how that looks like, and maybe just go and try to trick it later on. Now we also want to have like name, this TV show name. So this should be H2 or H3. Font size maybe 20 pixels. Is that right? Okay, we will see. The color should be pitch black. I don't see any other kind of color that should make that sense here. And I want to have some margin from the left, just to separate the thumbnail from the name. So let's say 10 pixels already. Okay. Then maybe last but not least, you're gonna have some rating if it is available, because sometimes it's not available. So if it is available, we can just provide some rating. I can say this could be grayish color, and if you take it up a little bit, font size here maybe 16 pixels. Then okay, so I'm gonna say so for this name, what I want it to take is actually as much as possible. So for example, the thumbnail is gonna take some part there, because it's only gonna care about the height for the thumbnail to preserve the aspect ratio. Then I want the title to take a little bit right here, then Lastly, we want to find the rating. So we can achieve this using flexbox. So I can say, for example, flexbox, this one takes 1. Okay, so flex 1. I want to make sure display flex and display flex for this one as well. So I want to use flex here like 0 points, or let's say I want this to be 2, this 1, and the thumbnail display flex and flex 1, but this should be 2. Okay, let me try to go and do this. So we got TV show container, then inside of it there will be like thumbnail, then the image, then the image here will be provided with the props. So it's going to be thumbnail src from props, and also going to be having name and rating if available. So here thumbnail src, I'm going to have name, so I'm going to render that, and last bullet is going to have the rating, and only if it is available, as I said before. So rating, I'm going to make sure like if rating and rating. So otherwise just completely ignore that and just don't render it. Okay, so let's go back here and try to render the whole list in here, if that makes sense, and try to like put everything on top to bottom inside of that. So I want to make sure if it's not is loading, then we can go ahead and render the whole list here. So I can just use a fragments. That should do the job for us in our case in here. So what I want to do, if it is actually loading, I can use another one, and I can do the list. So I'm not populating the list. So here what I want is actually to put the list in somewhere in here on the state, so later on we can access it. So let's go and have this one. I can do TV shows, set TV shows. So use state, and first is going to be an empty array because this is all about empty arrays. And I can have another like attribute. It checks if is empty. Is empty. Okay, I'm going to check if it's empty. So I'm going to make sure if it's not a TV show. So if it's not an array, it's undefined or something, or if TV shows.length equals 0. So that should be true in here. So we don't have to bother with this. So if it's not loading and not is empty, that is actually a crucial check to do as well. So we can do like tvshows.map TV show. And indeed, what I'm forgetting about is actually populating the array in the first place. So here, once we check if it's response, we can do like TV shows. Then I can do response.data. All right, makes sense. Now for the TV show in here, I can go and render a TV show directly. I can pass in whatever data comes through. I'm not really sure, so let me try to put something in here again, like here or something. I get a set of list in here. This is the score. Now what we get, an image. So I can, for the thumbnail src, I can go ahead and manipulate that as I want. So I can do TV show.image. Then the image, if you see here, it's an object. It has medium or original. I wanna have original. I don't want to have medium, or maybe medium because we are just having a small thumbnail, right? So that makes sense for performance. So I'm gonna just medium. Okay, this is the image. Name should be TV show dot name, and last but not least, what is that? So status, rating. So rating is an object, and we got an average inside of it. So we can have rating equals TV show dot rating dot average. That makes sense. Hope that makes sense. Okay, let me try to render that and say it looks, and boom, magic starts happening. Medium of undefined. So you couldn't access image. All right, so I want to do TV show and tvshow.image.medium. So you are another kind of average of undefined. So yeah, that's my bad here. So what I've checked tvshow.rating again. So I can do you. Yeah, we kind of like got some lists, but it seems like it's an empty list for some reason. I don't know why. Why is it an empty list? Oh, I have to access the .show. All right. Thank you. So .show here. Okay, can we have a better one? Yeah, we can have this one as show. Then I can get rid of it all and just replace that whole nonsense. Then make it look all good and fuzzy. And hallelujah, we got it, but not as expected anyway. So I don't know why I'm having it this way. This is kind of ridiculous. I'm far more confused than you can probably imagine, but let me see with this CSS kind of thingy, how is it going on? So this having some margin here. This is the image which is never being populated. For some reason, the SRC is never being made it out there. Thumbnail. Alright, I was misspelling thumbnail. Indeed, I was. And the thumbnail is not big enough. It really is not. And I want to make sure that it's quite visible. So I try to take this to 5 a.m. Maybe 6 a.m. Okay, kind of better now. We got those are not being centered properly. So I can do display flags. I can do align items to be on the center. Hope that works at some point. For this one is big, so I don't want it to be that big. Okay. This is taking a lot. 0.5. Even less. I mean, I just need a small part there. I don't want something really big. Now for the rating in here, or for the name, so justify contents. This should already be flex start, right? So this should take to, I want to flex, make sure this takes a smaller value. Next flex 5, that's too much. 4, maybe, yeah. Alright, it looks better, definitely, I agree on this. And here you can actually see everything, so maybe you can have some scrollable bar of overflow of how that should look like actually. So let me try to go and do this, raise that. So maybe instead of overflow hidden, so overflow Y auto, then we can have a scrollable bar here going on, which yeah, we could have a different container that has this. I mean, okay, so maybe we can just get rid of this. Alright, wanna close. Of course, this still happens because we've got this overflow kind of issue going on. So I also, one other thing, whenever we collapse, I want to set the TV shows to be empty array. If that makes sense for you guys. I just want to clear out everything. So whenever we click outside, everything is cleared out. We agree on that part. Now the second part we want to agree on is pretty much having this with a scrollable kind of bar, if that makes sense for you guys. So I want to only have the line separator if is expanded is set to true. That's good part. Also want to have the search contents only if is expanded, set to true. Okay, should we have any issues? We got you here, which is kind of ridiculous, of course, but If we close that, it's going to be unpopulated and removed. If we got on this search contents, overflow y to be auto, maybe that will work. There you go. Yeah, it does. And now we clearly see how it looks like. It looks definitely way much better than we expect it to be. We can even increase that. For example, you can go and increase this to, or I don't meant to increase this. I meant to increase this with a 26 EM or something. Just a quite bigger. Okay, let's go with 30. I mean, 30 is a beast, definitely. And hallelujah, you got this really good kind of like rating. And even on the TV show, if you say like rating and rating, we can get rid of this, and we can say like, if not rating, we can just display NA, which means like none or not found or something. And that should be pretty self-explanatory. I kind of like this. I can do, well, that looks good. I don't need to do anything else. And there you go. You got some TV shows kind of search bar going on for you. If you close it, it closes off really smoothly. And I don't know. If you go, oh, that's a pretty big, I don't know, Peaky Blinders. That's a really good TV show, by the way. So we can turn this video into a TV show kind of video, or turn the Code 1 channel to TV show 1 or something like this. I know I'm being ridiculous right now. We can turn the whole channel into a TV shows channel and make all of it. But hope you guys kind of enjoy this as I'm making this of how it looks like. Now the last thing I want to have in here control is actually just a small kind of message that shows up whenever we don't have something. For example, if you show up something like this, of course there's no search matches this criteria, so I want to show up something right there on this particular side. So we can go in and have and do it right here. So I want to have something like, you know what, let me go in and copy this rating thing, because this is the components we want to need. It's kind of the same one. So not or warning message. Of course you can have this from different components, but for now it should work perfectly for us. This should be 14 pixels. We don't need this one. And I want to use align self to the center and justify self to the center, and maybe that should make it work. We will see. Okay, so if it's not found, which means it is completely empty, I want to do like is not loading and is empty. So you need to make sure that you hold it off all. So warning message. No TV shows or series found. Okay, so if we type something ridiculous, no TV shows or series are found, and yeah, that kind of make it look good. But we can have this inside of the loading wrapper just to have it go inside there, just to center everything on there. As clear as it does center that, but I don't want to render this parentheses thing. Why does it even exist? Okay, we can get rid of that parentheses stuff. Alright, so no TV shows or series found. But I don't want to have this actually whenever we go, because I only want to have this once there is like we didn't find something. Okay, so I can do maybe, okay, so we can have another one, no TV shows, sets no TV shows, and we can use state, make this go false, and if no TV show is actually found, so if response, we got the data in here, what I want to check if response.data and response.data.length equals 0. Oh, I don't want a semicolon there. So I want to do sets no TV shows to true. Alright. And here whenever we close that, so sets TV shows, or no TV shows to be more specific, to false. Okay, so you can imagine this collapse container function as your disposal function, where you dispose and you get back to your default states for the whole application, or for pretty much for the whole components in here. So this is like more disposal. You can change the name to be more accurate of what it's exactly doing right now, other than just collapsing. But yeah, you can have it here, but it looks good for now for us. So we should be able to set no TV shows here. And last thing, so I want to check, not empty, I want to check is no, okay, is it called is TV, no TV shows. It's called no TV shows. So if we collapse this, we can have something completely different. So for example, you can do not is loading and is empty. Now in this scenario, what we want to do is actually show completely different message, like start typing to search. Okay, and that should be really smooth. Click see start typing to search. Then you can do it starts looking for you, it finds that. Man, that server is quite fast, it really is fast. And you can find it. Then if you type something else that is not been able to find, yeah, I want to add another condition is no or TV shows. Yeah, no TV shows found or series. If we close that, I mean, whenever we clear that, we should be able to actually get back to the previous state. So we can have this on the change handler, I believe. So if we do like fe.targets.value equals empty, I want to use trim on this. So we can do set no TV shows to false. All right. And if we do this again, so if we type something ridiculous, we're going to have no TV shows. If we go back, start typing to search, and look at this, it looks pretty smooth. If you find one, we're going to find one and we're going to have them all in there. I mean, if you do like peeking, whatever, that is not found, no TV shows found. So we can do mercy of peek. Yeah, even though we find here, we still like show no TV shows or series found. I don't know, that's a ridiculous guess, to be honest. Okay, so why is that happening? No TV shows. I should like I want to clear that out just before getting started. So no TV shows should be set to false at first. I mean, that should be the reason that is going on. Yeah. And there you go. So you got yourself in here. You can add as many details as you want. You can have it doing whatever you want, but you got the point. So hope you guys for watching. I know this is quite a long video, but hope you guys got a lot of value of this, because I tried to make it as simple as possible. I tried to make this as professional as possible. As clearly the component looks really good, at least in my opinion. But yeah, anyway guys, hope you guys enjoyed it. If you like this kind of video tutorials, let me know. I can make more and more and more for you guys, but whatever. So hope you guys enjoyed it, as I said before. Catch you all, hopefully, in the next ones.